Okay, this is a review for quiz 2, even odd identities and cofunction and solving trig equations. So the first couple here, you're going to look at your identity sheet and see that cosine of negative x is same as cosine x, and sine of negative x is same as negative sine x, and tangent is just sine x over cosine x. When I look through here, then these two cancel here. So I can cross them off. So I can cross off the cosine x and this cosine x because it's in the numerator and denominator. When I multiply these two together, I get negative sine squared x. The second one, whenever you square any trig function, is always going to be positive. So I have cosecant squared x minus cotangent squared x, and that's a Pythagorean identity that equals 1. Number 3, you're going to read this sentence here. Suppose theta is in the first quadrant, so you're going to make theta in the first quadrant. And the tangent, which is the opposite over adjacent, is 3/4. So the opposite is 3, and the adjacent is 4. And then you want to find the radius here by using Pythagoras. So r squared is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. So r squared is equal to 25. When you take the square, you get positive or negative 5. But the radius is always positive, so you're going to make that positive 5. And then sine of pi over 2 minus theta is equal to cosine theta. That's an identity, which is equal to 4/5. Or you can think of it this way. If this is theta, then this must be 90 minus theta. And then the sine of this angle up here would be the opposite, which is 4, and the adjacent 5. Same as the identity there. All right, then down here on number 4, let me make this full screen so you can see better. So number 4 here, the sine of theta is 2/5 and cosine is negative. So cosine is negative in the first quadrant. Sine is positive in the first and second, but since cosine is negative, you have to be in the second quadrant. And here's theta, and then the opposite side is 2, and the hypotenuse is 5. And then you want to find this side right here by using Pythagoras. So 5 squared is equal to 2 squared plus x squared. 5 squared is 25. 2 squared is 4 plus x squared. And then subtract 4 from both sides. And when I subtract 4 from 25, I get 21. So x squared is equal to 21, and then take the square root. And so x is going to be positive or negative square root of 21. And since we're on the second quadrant, the x values are negative in the second quadrant. Or to the left here, these x values would be negative to the left of the origin. So now I have all the sides of my triangle. And then I want to do tangent of pi over 2 minus theta, which is equal to, from your identity sheet, cotangent theta. Well, the cotangent of theta is the adjacent side, which is negative square root of 21 over the opposite side, which is 2. Or once again, you can think of it this way. If this is theta, then this is 90 minus theta, this angle. And then the tangent of that would be the opposite, negative square root of 21 over the adjacent, which is 2. On to the next page here. So the next page, you're solving equations. And the first thing you want to do here is add 2 to both sides. So you have square root of 3 cosecant x equal 2, and then divide by 3 on both sides of the equation. Now I have cosine x equal 2 over square root of 3. And if the cosine x is 2 over the square root of 3, that means the sine x must be the reciprocal of that, is root 3 over 2. And then you're going to look on your unit circle, which is on the back of your identity sheet and find where the sine is square root of 3 over 2. That's in the first and second quadrant. So pi over 3, which is the same as 60 degrees, and 2 pi over 3, which would be 120 degrees. And then number 6, this is already factored for you, so equate each factor to 0. So sine x minus 1 equals 0, or secant x minus 2 equals 0. Adding 1 to both sides here, you have sine x equal 1. If you add 2 to both sides here, you get cosecant x is equal to 2. Well, that means that the reciprocal of this, which is 1/2, is equal to cosine x. So cosine x is equal to the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/2. So where is the sine 1? There's a mistake here. So the sine is 1 at pi over 2, not pi. So 90. So let me change that. There's a little mistake there. So this first angle in radians is pi over 2. It's pi over 2. Okay, and then where is the cosine 1/2? So the cosine, that would be the adjacent over the hypotenuse is 1/2. So the adjacent of 60 degrees is 1, and the hypotenuse is 2. So that's pi over 3. And then also in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive. So at 300 degrees, or 5 pi over 3. And then the next one, you want to add 1 to both sides first, and then divide both sides by 4. So I end up with sine squared x equal 1/4, and then take the square root of both sides. You have sine x equal 1/2, or sine x equal negative 1/2. So where is the sine x 1/2? That's at 30 degrees and 150 degrees. And where is it negative 1/2? So this is the first quadrant, second quadrant. Then in the third and fourth quadrant, sine is negative. So 7 pi over 6, which is the same as 210, and 11 pi over 6, which would be the same as 330 degrees. And then number 8, you have 4 secant x equal 8 when you subtract 2 from both sides. And then divide by 4. So secant x equal 2. So reciprocal of this is 1/2. That means the cosecant x equal 1/2. So same as up here. We already decided those are pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. So to find all these angles in radians, then you're going to use the unit circle on the back of your trig identity sheet. And then number 9, taking the square root of both sides, you get tangent x equal 1 or negative 1. And then you look on your unit circle. The tangent is 1 at pi over 2 and 5. Let me say that again. The tangent is 1 is pi over 4, which is 45 degrees. And at 225, 5 pi over 4. And then it's negative 1 at 3 pi over 4, which is 135 degrees. And then 7 pi over 4, which is 315 degrees. All right, then last one here. You want to factor out a cosine x, and you have 1 minus 2 sine x in the parentheses. So equating each factor to 0, cosine x equals 0, or 1 minus 2 sine x equals 0. And then you subtract 1 from both sides. So negative 2 sine x equal negative 1, and then divide both sides by 2, sine x equal 1/2. So where's the cosine 0? At 0 and at 180 or pi. And where's the sine x 1/2? That's at 30 or at 150. So pi over 6 or 5 pi over 6. Okay, that's that review. This is a shorter review. It's probably better if you want to do the retake to look at this review here. So it's more similar to the test you're going to take.